daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.
A very warm welcome to you wherever you are in the world. You are listening to the Daily Premier League podcast with me, Nick Britten. It is Monday the 15th of September, and I am delighted to be joined today by making his debut on the Daily Premier League. I have to say, making his debut is the fantastic podcaster from our magnificent Daily Newcastle podcast, part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. That is Mr. Iain MacKay. Iain, a very warm welcome.
Thank you very much, Nick. I'm just noticing already the professionalism that you bring to your podcast. Making his debut, you said, whereas on Newcastle, I would be popping me cherry.
Yeah, I think by the look of you popped your cherry a long time ago. But we'll gloss on from that. And to be fair, I'm returning the favour because you did have me on GSPN Daily Newcastle a few weeks ago.
We did.
It's very, very nice to be able to return that favour. Over the course of the next 25 minutes to half an hour, we're going to just be looking at three things. Now, last night's podcast, if you joined us then, you would have heard myself and Tom Elkins go through the games over the weekend and a review of them all. There was one game that we missed out on quite deliberately, and that was Arsenal against Nottingham Forest. And there's a reason we missed that out. It's not because we are totally inefficient. It's because I wanted to talk in a little bit more depth about Arsenal's front line and posing the question to Iain and indeed you all listening today, whether or not this front line they've spent a lot of money on Eberesie Eze, Nani Madweke and Viktor Korkirash, whether that is the final missing piece of the jigsaw that could land Arsenal the title. We all know, don't we? Recent times, they've come close to no cigar. And one of the reasons is they've not really had somebody who can net 25 goals, 30 goals a season, or indeed anybody coming close to that. Now they've got sort of three players in there who can create and who can score. So I wanted to talk about that. Now, I don't know if you saw the game on Saturday, Iain, but Arsenal were really, really good going forwards. They dominated for us for long periods. And these three guys who played in that front line, because Saka's obviously injured, they look great.
I think they are great. I mean, I know it's not a yes/no answer that you're looking for as to whether Gyökeres can be the striker which fires Arsenal to the championship. But it's certainly a big step forward from trying to convert Havertz into that centre forward or Mikel Merino. And they did come very, very close with a what would you call them, a false nines almost, but they're certainly not got that striker's instinct, for example, that we've enjoyed for the last few years with Alexander Isak, for example, nor that the striker's instinct that we're hoping Yoann Wissa's going to bring for Newcastle. I think Gyökeres does have it. He is turning up in exactly the right place to be able to score the typical fox in the box type striker's goals. If he can get 22, 23, 24, I think, leaving Saka aside because he's injured, they've really pulled Madweke out of a box. I mean, it was such a ridiculous signing at the time. The Arsenal fans made a petition asking why on earth have we bought this fella. But certainly the elevation in profile from when he was misfiring on the wing for Chelsea to England's saviour and a Saka replacement is incredible. He's a fantastic player. And then one of my own favourites from the last few years, they've brought in on the left, Eze. What a fantastic creative player he is as well. I mean, they still have Trossard and Martinelli, who did a good enough job to get very, very close in previous years. So I would say, is it enough to win the championship? It depends on how much further on City and Liverpool are. But they've certainly made some giant leaps forward in scoring the goals that you would need to score to be able to win the top pot.
Yeah, I think so. When you look at, let's face it, there's going to be loads and loads of Chelsea fans who would have quite gladly driven Madweke themselves across London from west to north, but he started the season really, really well. I watched him live in the
Fantastic.
flesh a couple of weeks ago when England played Andorra, and I went to that game, and he was one of the very few. Very well. There were two. There were two bright sparks in that game. One was Elliot Anderson, and one was Madweke. I thought he played really well, and I love the way that every time he got the ball, his first thought is get him a fullback, get him a fullback. Try and create something. And when you've got that down one side, you've got Eze, who's a different type of player. Not perhaps he's not a winger as such. He'll cut inside, he'll drift, but he'll beat players and he'll create. And then of course you've got Bukayo Saka to come in when he's back to full fitness. And suddenly now you've got a target man. 3 goals in 4 games so far this season in Goalkeepers, 2 against Leeds United, 1 against Nottingham Forest at the weekend. It's really looking potent. And when I look around the other top 3 or 4 teams, Liverpool, Manchester City, Chelsea, Tottenham, Newcastle, these sort of the big clubs that you expect to be challenging for Champions League places, I can't see much better than those sort of 4 or 5 players. And even behind that, they've got players like Trossard who can come on and make a difference. They've got Havertz to come back. Like you, I believe Havertz, he's just not a goal scorer, but he's still a very good player. They've still got Gabriel Jesus on the books, which I didn't realise until I started looking into all this. That's a very talented set of frontline creative players. It really is.
I think so. And of course, from a purely introspective, bitter Newcastle perspective, we really hope Gyökeres scores 30 goals and takes over the centre forward spot for Sweden for the World Cup, because that'll leave a certain striker sitting on the bench watching, won't it?
I can't imagine who you're not talking about Anthony Langria. I can't imagine who you might be talking about. I thought you were going to say I hope he scores 30 goals because then he can go on strike and then sign for Liverpool. But who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
No, I think Liverpool have strengthened as well. Obviously, without Isak, they look very potent going forward. But I do think that Arsenal have strengthened in midfield. Zubimendi looked fantastic. What a goal he scored, the first one, by the way. Blimey. If there had been no net, that would still be going up by 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. And this was a guy they picked up for 13 million. Is it Mokera?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In defence, he looks fabulous. And I think, did they buy Hink? I can't even pronounce this name either. The Ecuadorian guy, Hincapi. Is that right? Who we haven't even seen yet, but I think is an absolute 6'6" monster that's going to make Gabriel and Saliba look like they ought to be long distance runners rather than centre halves. I think Arsenal have strengthened all over. They've already got a fabulous goalkeeper in Raya. When you look at Liverpool, they strengthened going forward, but they are really, really vulnerable in defence, I think, to an injury or two, certainly through to January. Van Dijk picks up another injury. They're going to look wide open.
They are they're very reliant on Konate playing well and Van Dijk playing well and staying fit. Behind that, they've got Joe Gomez, but he's never really played a consistent run of games for the last couple of years. Yeah, I mean, looking at who Arsenal brought in, you're talking about Hincapi, who they brought in for Bayer Leverkusen on loan. I mean, you're talking about players like Christian Norgard, who was Brentford's best player last season, arguably.
Yeah.
Well, was he their best player? I don't know. He was the driving force certainly of the team. Nobody's even talking about him in the midfield area because you've got obviously Declan Rice in there as well, and you've got Zubimendi in there now as well. You've got Odegaard in there as well. It feels like this is Arsenal's best chance. To me, it feels like this is their best chance. I thought they might be running into Haaland, but this feels like their best chance.
I agree. But I do think that all of those top sides have got some fantastic forward lines and have neglected strengthening further through the side. City, I think, still with Ruben Diaz again at centre half. Is Rodri come back as well as good a player as the Ballon d'Or winner that we won?
He did, and then he's out again. You can't be. It's going to be a long road. It's going to be a long road before we see him really fit and firing back to his best, even when he's fit again.
I think so. I think maybe Pep's masterstroke is to grab Donnarumma at the tail end of the transfer window. I know we're going to talk about him later on. He's a fantastic goalkeeper. But yeah, that's the problem with Chelsea. Chelsea bought all of those young players, let Madweke go, which is now looking a bit of a silly thing to do. Um, but they never strengthened the goalkeeping position. It's still Robert Sanchez, and I'm sure even the Chelsea fans would cross their fingers and hope that they could have had a different goalkeeper playing instead of that. So I
Well, yeah,
think,
it wasn't.
yeah,
It's not as bad. It's not as bad as the absolute disaster going on at Old Trafford, where they had a chance to sign Emilio Martinez, one of the best goalkeepers in the world, and said, "No, let's bring in a kid from Royal Antwerp who's just had one good season in Belgium." It's staggering.
yeah. But then they didn't play him. They played outside, didn't they? And
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
derby,
yeah.
who actually played quite well. I don't think you could have blamed him for anything. He
I
played
agree. I mean,
pretty
he's
well,
had,
but City blew them away, really.
yeah. Well, defensively, Man United were absolutely all over the shop. That
Oh,
back three was so poor. It's ridiculous. I mean, we'll talk about Man United lots. We talk about Ruben Amorim lots, and I'm sure we'll talk about him a lot more. So I am going to ask you. You said at the start of the show, this is not a yes no question. I'm going to ask you for a yes no answer. Do you think that the signing of Arsenal's front three has significantly strengthened them enough that they're in with a real shout of winning the title this year? Yes or no?
uh, yes.
There
However,
you
they did
go.
lose at Liverpool, and I think that might be crucial at the end of the season, having already lost to Liverpool. But I do think that I think they are. I think I picked City to win myself, but that I might have changed that after City lost two of the first three and switched to Arsenal. I can't remember. It's on a podcast from a week or two ago. One of the international break podcasts where we switched our predictions. I think Arsenal would be strong and they'll be there in it right the way through till the end of the season, at least.
Well,
And I'll be
we hope so
delighted.
because we want a competitive Premier League, don't we? We don't want anybody walking away with the league. Right, in just a moment, we are going to have a look at two things really. Is this has the long throw made a welcome return? For a football purist like me, I think it's great. I love it. Long throws in the box, causing carnage and chaos. That's what I like to see. And has that, in some way or not, prompted Manchester City's move for Donnarumma, an absolute hulk of a goalkeeper? We're going to be talking about that in just a moment. Before we do, a
Your
word from our
body
sponsor.
is unique. And Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bionique, the world's most personalised supplements. Bionique provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right level to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN 2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bionique. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
It's gorgeous, isn't it, Ken?
Your daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Daily Premier League podcast, part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. Thank you very much indeed for listening. Make us your daily listen. Hit subscribe, hit like, get in touch with us through our socials. Get in touch with us on email, dailypremierleague@gmail.com. I think that's what it is. Actually, don't do that because I don't know. I'll find out the right email address and tell you tomorrow. I can never remember what it is. I've got that many email addresses swimming through my head. But certainly you can find us on YouTube, you can find us on Spotify, you can find us on Instagram, you can find us on X, you can find us everywhere. I'm in the hot seat, me, Nick Britten, with Iain MacKay today. We are talking now about, are we seeing the rebirth, and those of us of a certain age can remember this has come around 2 or 3 times in our footballing careers, of the long throw. Now, Premier League's all been about lovely, touchy-feely, tiki-taka, whatever you want to call it, football, pass and move, blah, 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 blah. And the long throw, sadly, seemed to take a back seat. But it's back. It's back, ladies and gentlemen. Stats already from Opta are showing that in the Premier League this season there's been an average of 3.03. We'll just call it 3. I want to see what 0.3 long throw looks like. It's just when you drop it at your feet, I think. 3 long throws into the opposition boxes per game. So that's 20 metres plus into the game, which is almost double any other season in the previous 10 years. Any other season. So it is almost double already the 2018-19 season where we last had a glut of long throws. Interestingly, that season, I remember this, 2018, Liverpool brought Thomas Gronemark in as a long throw coach, a specialist
Wow.
throwing coach. Yeah, I remember that. Everybody's going, what on earth? But as always, Liverpool were before their time, because probably everybody's going to have a long throw coach in the next 2 months. You can see it. You can. Oh, sorry, I wiped my microphone there. You can see it. I was getting that excited. So is this the return of the long throw? Brentford scored their equalising goal in injury time on Saturday with an absolute zinger into the box from Kevin Sade. It caused carnage, and Carvalho tapped it in from about 2 yards out as his marker, Garnacho, just stood looking up in the air, wondering what day it was, about 5 yards away. No clue whatsoever. But yeah, and Brentford have scored more long throws than anybody else. They've got 5 more goals. They've got seven, right? 7 goals Brentford have scored from long throws since the start of last season, which is 5 more than anybody. So they practice it all the time. And there was a great interview with Keith Andrews, their manager, the other day, where he's talking about, look, I used to have to face this. I was playing in the days where Rory Delap, do you remember that? Rory Delap was the absolute master of these things.
Yeah.
I was playing where I had to face all these things, and it was an absolute nightmare. So listen, why don't we do it? So he was part of the coaching staff last year, obviously at Brentford, when they started introducing these. He's carried it on, and he sees it as a very potent weapon. And it would appear that everybody else is catching on. Iain, do you welcome the return of the long throw into the penalty area?
It's strange, isn't it? Because the long throw is just the first element of that very the pathfinders for statistical analysis in management, Sam Allardyce and Tony Pulis, who worked out that you had to have the ball in the box as quickly as possible to have the best chance of scoring. Now, Newcastle have appointed a set piece coach, and we've started using the long throw. It's a Tino Livramento long throw. And whilst we didn't score from it on Saturday, Jacob Murphy had a shot from about 4 yards, which came from the chaos of a long throw that Joe Linton got his head on, which was brilliantly saved by Johnson, off his knee, I think, but he spread himself really, really well. So we could easily have scored from that long throw. What even more out of that old-fashioned playbook, Sandro Tonali kicked off on Saturday by wellying the ball straight out of play at the corner flag to give the opposition a really awkward throw-in 2 feet from their own goal line, because if we are going to start pressing up there, that's when we win the ball back and turn it over and we're in their box. So these things aren't new, and I know they've gone a little bit out of fashion because maybe there's less skill involved in doing that. People are ashamed, but they shouldn't be. If it's producing goals, and I mean, it saved a point for Brentford on Saturday, didn't it? I'm all for it. Why not? We all love a bit of chaos in the box, and it might level the playing field a bit. If City and Liverpool and Arsenal have got all of the really skillful players, let's just bombard them with long throws and kicks out of the goalkeeper's hand that bounce once on the edge of the box. Why not?
Well, I've been looking at some of the trends from the early stages of the Premier League and some of the stats, and there are 2 or 3 trends that stand out already. One of them is the long throw. The other one is, as you've just quite rightly identified, teams kicking off and playing for touch, essentially playing for just getting the team up the pitch by booting it, rugby style, into touch as near to the corner flag as possible, getting everybody at the pitch and trying to box them in. And the other one is long balls from goal kicks, whether it be the goalkeeper or whether it be the centre half, because a couple of teams are using the centre half, Tottenham one of them, to take long goal kicks and get it into the opposition half as much as possible. Now, part of that is finally, and not before time, I must say, suddenly realising, look, we're not good enough to just play out from the back and pass the ball in our own area in between the centre halves and the goalkeeper when teams press us from goal kicks, because we concede goals. So let's not concede goals and let's not try. I wonder, and I don't know if this is a spurious link or not, so you tell me. So Manchester City have bought Donnarumma in, okay? He is 6'50". You saw him yesterday. He's massive. He's such a bulk, such a unit. And anything that came into the Manchester City sort of 6-yard area or thereabouts, he just got a fist to, he got a hand to. He blocked. He's what I'll call an old-fashioned goalie. Now, we know that Donnarumma is not good with his feet. So Ederson, who he's replaced via James Trafford briefly, Ederson, arguably, he was better than most outfield players in the Premier League in terms of his ability to pass the ball 15, 20, 30 yards. He was absolutely superb. And he was brought in when Pep brought in that idea that goalkeepers are your kind of sweepers, they are your outfield player in many respects in terms of their ability to play. But with the reliance now on set pieces, i.e. corners, and Arsenal, we know about their strength of corners, plenty others are, but they certainly hold the baton at the moment, and long throws and long balls. Is there now a requirement for goalkeepers not to worry about them being able to play football, but worry about them being able to keep goal and be a presence in the 6-yard box? And on that final point, we've seen already this season too many goalkeepers flap at crosses, flap at when they're being put under pressure, not be able to have that physical presence in the box because that's almost not what they were brought in to do. So is the game, as we know football goes in cycles, and what was fashionable 15, 20 years ago isn't now, but or might not be up until now, but is it coming back into fashion? Is that whole wheel turning, do you think?
Oh, that's a big question, isn't it? I don't think that there's any other reason for Pep to bring Donnarumma in other than the fact that Donnarumma is world-class goalkeeper, maybe the best goalkeeper in the world. What a shot stopper he is. He still let 4 in when Paris Saint-Germain played at St James's Park, of course, but that was a great night, a special night. No, he's a fantastic goalkeeper. And what I was going to say was that even your Edersons getting pats on the back for bringing the ball out at his feet, but then playing a 60, 70-yard assist to bounce once for Haaland to knock it in, which is a typical long ball. It's just not kicked out of his hands. Just because he dribbled it out of his box and wellied it up that far, I don't think that is tactically very much different. But I do think that we've had a number of instances where not being able to dominate the goal line at a corner or a throw has cost teams dear. I'm thinking in particular of that first game of the season when it was Altay who just couldn't get through to the ball, and the ball almost bounced in front of him. And I think it was Calafiori who rather embarrassingly scored a header at the far post. Can't remember. I think it was Arsenal, Man U. Yeah, because Man U played quite well, but the goal that Arsenal scored was dreadful. So, I've always thought that being able to play out with your feet was kind of overrated or overvalued. We've done perfectly fine with Nick Pope, who is another one who is traditionally not very good with his feet, but he gets a lot of clean sheets because he's such a good goalkeeper. We've got Ramsdale on loan that we haven't seen play in the Premier League yet, who's also a big lad, quite dominant, but is meant to be better with his feet. And actually, we're noticing Pope's better this season because he's learning off Ramsdale in training, we think, or he's being pressed by him. So I don't know. I think there's still, if your team is strong enough, there's a big argument to keep possession and play it out from the back, because hoofing it up the field becomes a bit of a lottery because it's whoever gets the first ball, whoever gets to the second ball. Whereas if you can play through the opposition, then you've retained possession and you're on the attack.
The flip side of that, though, is, and you take Manchester City at home to Tottenham on the earlier this season, they conceded a ridiculous goal because James Trafford was standing on the 6-yard box with the ball to take a goal kick. He kicked it to one. He had his centre half standing on the corner of his 6-yard area, and Tottenham players are all lined up on the edge of the area, ready to swarm. And when you see that, you go, yeah, this might not be the best idea. But no, it's been drilled into me. I've got to do it. So he passes to his defender, and within about 5 seconds, the ball's in the back of his own net. So,
yeah, well, I mean, Newcastle are a very, very strong pressing side, and we love teams that are playing out from the back. I mean, I don't know how many goals were scored against Tottenham by them cocking that sort of thing up. But I certainly remember Gordon's second goal at home in the second leg of the Carabao Cup semi-final was purely down to Raya playing the ball and getting intercepted back to Gordon to score. The number of goals that first goal in the match against Paris Saint-Germain was an interception of a short ball out that was really well saved by Donnarumma from Isak, but Almiron came in and scored the rebound. So, yeah, I mean, watching Southampton struggle again and again and again last year doing it when they just weren't good enough to play through. If it's okay for them to hoof the goal kicks up to midway through the opposition half, fair enough. But that might just be losing possession to watch the team come back at you.
Well,
But at least you're not self-destructing. It always looks like a complete self-destruct if you get caught like that.
I would much rather lose possession in the opposition half than lose possession in the penalty area. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
It is as simple as that. So, yeah, well, we'll see. It'd be really interesting to see how Man City play from here on in. Whether, yeah, you're right. Listen, this could all be speculation, and the fact they might have just bought Donnarumma because he is available. He's one of the best goalkeepers in the world, and why wouldn't you? But they were obviously losing Ederson for a particular reason. You tell me what that is. They bought in James Trafford and had a couple of shaky games. So it feels like, obviously Man City changed the way they played last season 2 seasons ago by bringing in Haaland. And he was the first traditional number 9 that City had had for a couple of seasons prior to that, when they were playing in false nines and no nines and all of this kind of stuff. So I'm going to keep a very close eye to see what all this is about.
Yeah. 95% of Donnarumma's balls out short are easy balls out, aren't they? I mean, it's just a little ball knocked to the fullback, and it's how good your central midfielders, and we're talking therefore about Rodri and maybe Foden, who are picking the ball up with their facing their own goal. It's how good they are at ball retention as to whether you get caught, and they're experts. They're past masters at it, aren't they? I don't think Donnarumma needs to be playing those 60-yard one bounce assists straight through to Haaland, because that is only 6 or 7 times he's ever done that, and most of the playing out short he can do just as well as anybody else. We could take a leaf out of Pope's book and throw a really accurate ball out to the halfway line rather than try and kick it there, because if you try to kick it to the halfway line, it will be in the crowd.
You sound very, very much like my wife, Ian, who manages to turn every conversation around to how brilliant Newcastle are and how better they are than anybody else and anything else.
No, I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that Pope's heavily criticised because he's not very good with his feet. I mean, honestly, he looks, every time the ball gets played back to him, it's like there's a bomb scare. That's how nervous we are when the ball gets back to him. But actually, most of the time, he's controlled it and knocked it to Trippier or to Burn, and it comes back again without there being any incident. It's just how good the team are that are pressing. And I guess if you've got a good pressing team, then you welly it up the field a higher proportion of times than you normally do. Try and get a deflection and get a long throw, and it all works.
Yep, fair enough. Right, okay. We're going to have a word from our sponsor, after which we are going to move on to the last bit of the podcast, which is talking about a dream, and another dream debut for a certain striker this weekend. But here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner with 4K video recording from your phone, AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, although not Ian's 2000 Newcastle references in a daily Premier League podcast. It is super easy to start a podcast that sounds great. You don't look at me like that. That sounds great and is delivered efficiently. So if you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
Your daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.
Well, I couldn't get you on this podcast, Ian, without talking about Nick Voltemade and his debut on Saturday, scoring the only goal in a 1-0 victory against Wolverhampton Wanderers. how long is it before the Newcastle fans go, Isaac, who?
We're already trying to do it. Um, no, I mean, I think when the dust settles, Isak was a fantastic player, and it's a feather in our cap that we took the chance and bought him for 60 odd million and then doubled our money in 3 years. Um, and we've had some fabulous days out with him, but there's life afterwards. Um, it was so good that Voltemada was able to have a dream debut, as he called it, because it looked like Visser had a nightmare debut, which should have been on Saturday, and came back from Congo with a dodgy knee. I still haven't heard how long he's out for. Um, so Voltemada starting up front isn't something that Eddie Howe would have planned for. It took Bruno 6 weeks before he got to start when he came in. It took Botman a little bit longer before he got to start. The guys coming from the foreign leagues are always bedded in to learn how we're playing longer than we want. We're always wanting to see them come on. But Voltemada got chucked in. He'd only trained with them twice, 2 full sessions. But yeah, he looks a really intelligent player. Anticipating a bad ball, for example, and running against the way everybody else is running to be the first man to pick up a bad cross and lay it back to Murphy to have a shot that whizzed past the post. It's strange. I think he's going to bring lots more than what he actually scored his goal doing, which is being the tall target man on the far post and powering a header into the top corner. I don't think that's what he's built his reputation on. And he certainly looks as if he's going to play a lot of the game with his back to goal. So he's not a replacement number 9. It might herald a slight change in how Newcastle play. If he's a false 9 with Alanga and Gordon or Murphy and super quick Barnes coming in from the wings or Wisser coming in from the left, I think that might be where his position is. But he did a job on Saturday and he did it really, really well.
Well, there can't be. I mean, look, there can't have been a better debut in as much as in front of the Newcastle fans. I mean, you talk about coming in from the foreign leagues. He's played at Stuttgart, plays for the German national team, and he played for them during the international break. That's not like saying bringing someone over from South America or even coming over from other European leagues like the Dutch league. The German league is probably as close as you'll get to the Premier League in those European leagues. So I think he's probably well set up to do so. What I liked about his performance, I mean, it was a great goal, by the way. It was a great goal. I particularly liked his movement as he just peeled off his defender, nudged the defender, peeled off to meet Murphy's cross. Was a really smart bit of movement. And even though he's 6'2", he still had to kind of jump for it a little bit. And I think he did anyway. I don't think his 2 feet were planted on the floor.
He's got extra joints in his neck to be able to get over the ball that is behind him when it comes in as well. I don't know how he did that.
It was
a
great header.
Jump straight.
It was just brilliantly taken. And after everything that's happened at Newcastle over the summer and all the rancour and the bitterness over the Isaac and the Willie, it won't he, blah, all of that, for him to come into that atmosphere, to come into that dressing room, to come into that team and score the winning goal on your debut is just what everybody connected with Newcastle United would have wanted and needed. The supporters needed it, Voltemada needed it, the club owners, Eddie Howe needed it, the whole city needed it. And I was really, really pleased. But the other thing that I really was impressed with him about when I watched the game is how he dropped off, link play, didn't just link it though. Once he'd done that, he turned and moved into that 9 position. And he was always looking for the ball. His work rate was really, really good, I thought. So, yeah, I think you've got a real player on your hands there.
Well, the thing is, you've noticed him because of all of that work rate. But I think I saw the stat that of all the players that started the game, Voltemada touched it fewer times than any other Newcastle player. But he's always available and he's always there, pressing, involved.
I don't. You're right, but stats are stats, and stats can mean anything you want them to mean. Because players who run off the ball, players who create space, players who do the dirty work so that others can do the glamorous work, their stats might say, "Well, I only touched the ball once." But if you've made 3 really good runs and it's drawn defenders away and it's created a couple of goals, well, your value to the team is massive, but the stats might not show.
Absolutely.
So if you're as Voltemada scaring the bejesus out of Wolves and you're attracting 2 players to you every time you make a move, yeah, you might not touch the ball, but you're creating plenty of space for others to operate in.
Yeah, we're excited. We're excited to see what Eddie can do with him, because Eddie Howe has got a long track record of improving players when they've come in. He's still a young fellow with more improvement in him anyway, and he's coming into a team with an established way of playing, where there are no secrets with a lot of the established players. We've had them for 3 years. The team knows each other really, really well. And this chap, his English is great. His character seems, apparently the players love him. He's quite funny, he's quite relaxed. Doesn't seem to have any massive ego. He'll probably fit in really, really well. And you hope that would be a quick bedding in period, and some real surprises to come in the way that Newcastle change their attack in certain games. There'll be games where we don't need Tonali, Bruno and Joe Linton in midfield. Some would argue Wolves at home was a game like that, where we might play a double pivot and have Voltemada as a proper number 10. That would be exciting. That would be very exciting, with Wissa in front of him and the 2 fast wingers down either side. But he's got options. That's the massive, massive change from previously. You can't necessarily guess the way we're going to take on a game by just looking at the team lineup. And I think you could do that last year. Arsenal still didn't get to the bottom of it, of course, but we'll see this year, won't we?
Well, after a summer where it was a messy breakup, and Newcastle fans' hearts were broken. Are they about to be mended? Because you all looked a lot happier after such a disappointing and traumatic time. So best of luck to him, and we hope he gets on very, very well. Right, that brings down the curtain on today's episode. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Iain, thank you very much indeed for stepping in at the last minute, because it was meant to be Ken and I today, but his plane got delayed coming back from France. So thank you for stepping in.
You're very welcome. I've enjoyed it.
It's been great to have you. You can hear much more of Iain and his fellow Geordies on the GSPN Daily Newcastle. You can find that on Spotify and loads of social media things. They do some great stuff covering Magpies. So do check in and his teammates out. In fact, you're off in just a moment, aren't you, to record today's Daily Newcastle podcast?
I think I've got enough time to grab a sandwich in between, yeah.
Good man. Well, we'll listen out for that. And for everybody else, thank you very much indeed for listening. We're back tomorrow. Ken and I are back tomorrow in the hot seat with more of your daily Premier League. Until then, look after yourselves, look after each other. Goodbye.
Your daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.